You know, some books start with a huge explosion. Not wide Sargasso Sea. Jean Rhys just drops you into this creeping silence. It's a world that's absolutely simmering with tension, the kind you can feel in your bones long before anyone says a word. So, let's get into it. Let's see how these first few pages build this incredible atmosphere of a world that's just about to completely fall apart.
And right away, we're seeing this world through the eyes of our narrator, Antoinette. You feel this deep sense of unease. And it's not just, oh, I miss the good old days. No, this is something much deeper. It's the loss of feeling safe in your own home. That basic thing we all just assume we have, for her, it's already gone. And that really sets the stage for everything to come.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Where are we exactly? We're in 1830s Jamaica on an estate called Culebri. And this timing is absolutely critical. It's right after the Emancipation Act, which was supposed to have freed the enslaved people. But, as you're about to find out, this freedom has just thrown everything into chaos. It's created this massive power vacuum, and families like Antoinette's are just left to rot, basically, isolated and decaying.
And when I say decay, I mean you can literally see it. It's physical. The roads haven't been fixed, so nobody can get to them, and they can't get out. The garden has just gone completely wild. And this isn't some romantic, beautiful, overgrown garden. No, it's a symbol of total abandonment. A whole way of life just left to die on the vine.
So you have to ask yourself, right? Why is everything falling apart like this? What's going on? And the book is so clever here. It doesn't just hand you the answer. It makes you feel a bit like Antoinette herself, a child trying to piece together all these little clues to understand this collapsing world around her.
Okay, so here's the historical backdrop, the big why. It all comes down to the Emancipation Act of 1833. Now, this act ended the horrific system of slavery, but it also completely pulled the rug out from under the economy that slave-owning families like the Cosways relied on. They were promised money, compensation for the property they lost, and let's be clear, they meant human beings. But that money never showed up. So the old, brutal order is gone, but there's nothing to take its place, just chaos and financial ruin.
And this isn't just some abstract economic thing you'd read about in a textbook. I mean, this has real, devastating consequences for the people living it. Take their only friend, Mr. Luttrell. He gets so tired of waiting for that compensation money that he just kills himself. It's a really brutal moment that shows you the level of desperation. And with him gone, Antoinette's family is now completely, utterly alone.
So, okay, they're isolated, but what is it they're isolated from? This is where it gets really interesting, because it's not just a simple black and white issue. The social hierarchy here is incredibly complicated, with all these invisible lines drawn between people, and almost none of it is ever said out loud. Get this, even the white community isn't united. It's totally fractured. You've got the old money English families, what the book calls the Jamaican ladies, and they absolutely look down their noses at Antoinette's mother, Annette. And why? Well, because she's Creole. She's from French Martinique, which makes her a total outsider in their eyes. She's too pretty, speaks with a different accent. Basically, she's not one of them.
So you can see just how precarious their position is. The Cosway family is completely trapped. They're rejected by the other white families for not being English enough, and of course they're hated by the local black population who remember them as their masters. So they're poor, they have no power, and they're stuck right in the middle with everyone glaring at them. What a nightmare.
You just know this kind of fragile existence can't hold, right? All that unspoken tension, all that hate simmering just below the surface, it's about to boil over. It's going to erupt into an act of violence that's just impossible to ignore. An act that proves all their worst fears were true.
Remember how we talked about the roads being a mess? Well, their horse was their one ticket out of there, their only way to connect with anyone. And when the horse is gone, Antoinette's mom uses this perfect, chilling word. She says they are marooned. Think about that. Not just stuck, marooned, like they've been shipwrecked on their own property.
So what happened to the horse? Did it just get sick? No way. This was no accident. This was a statement. This was a huge escalation, moving from just quiet resentment and whispers to something openly hostile. And then, Antoinette finds her mother's horse. It's dead. It's been poisoned. I mean, what a deliberate, cruel thing to do. This is the first real physical act of violence against them, and it's a terrifying confirmation that the hate all around them isn't just talk. It's real, and it's dangerous.
And the reactions to this are so telling. Annette, the mother, just loses it. She's furious, and she immediately accuses their servant, Godfrey, of being in on it.
But Godfrey's reaction is, well, it's fascinating. He doesn't deny it, he doesn't confirm it, he just retreats into this sort of vague religious talk. He's walking this impossible tightrope, right? He can't side with his former owners, but he can't exactly side against them either. His silence says everything.
And that right there gets us to the heart of how this book is written. The biggest, most important things, like who actually poisoned the horse, why, the novel never just comes out and tells you. The real story is in what's not being said. It's all in the silence.
Think about it. When Antoinette first finds the horse, what's her first instinct? To say nothing, to keep it a secret. It's that classic kid logic, you know? If I don't talk about it, maybe it didn't really happen. And that little coping mechanism she has, that's basically how this entire society works. Everyone is just trying to ignore the horrible truths that are staring them right in the face.
That's what makes the writing so brilliant, really. Rhys doesn't hold your hand. She writes it as if you're already there, as if you should already understand all these complex tensions. So you, the reader, you're forced to piece it all together from hints, from glances, from what's left unsaid. The story isn't on the page, it's in the gaps between the words.
So all of this builds to the one huge question that's going to drive the whole story. You have this world that's built on just ignoring everything, on silence and denial. But you know what? Poisoning a horse, that's just the start. So the real question is, what happens next? What happens when things get so violent that you just can't pretend anymore? What happens when all those unspoken truths finally come roaring out?
Today, we're diving into the world of a young girl named Antoinette. Her whole life is centered around her family's crumbling estate, Coulibaly, but things are starting to fall apart in some really deep ways. We're going to follow the shadows as they creep into her childhood, starting with the one person who should have been her biggest comfort, her mother. And that really is the question at the heart of all this. How does something so fundamental, so essential, just fade away? For Antoinette, it doesn't happen all at once. It starts quietly, with a closed door and a conversation she was never supposed to hear. You know, the thing that kicks this whole tragedy off is surprisingly ordinary. A doctor comes to the house to see Antoinette's disabled younger brother, Pierre. Antoinette has no idea what they talked about, but the fallout from that one visit is immediate and just catastrophic. Whatever that doctor said completely breaks her mother, Annette, and it sends shockwaves through Antoinette's entire world. Right after that visit, Annette just checks out. She sinks into this deep depression and pretty much becomes a prisoner in her own house. But for a little kid like Antoinette, this isn't just about sadness. It's a terrifying change in the person who's supposed to be her rock, who now just pushes her away, lost in these conversations she's having with herself. So with her mother pushing her away, Antoinette has to find somewhere else to go. And that place becomes the estate's garden. See, after emancipation, her family's money has dried up and there's no one around to take care of the grounds anymore. So the garden has just run wild, becoming this place that's both gorgeous and, well, a little bit dangerous. This one line just captures the whole vibe of the garden perfectly, doesn't it? It's a place where your senses are totally overwhelmed, where life and death are literally all tangled up together. This mix of beautiful living things and rotting, decaying ones becomes a really powerful reflection of everything that's happening in Antoinette's own life. And that's exactly why the garden is so much more than just a setting. It's a mirror. Just like the estate has been left to fall apart, Antoinette is being neglected by her mother. And in that neglect, she's also becoming kind of wild and free, but she's also touched by this deep sense of sadness and decay. It's her safe space, but it's a really complicated one. So, as Antoinette's mother basically disappears from her life, a new person starts to fill that empty space. To get away from Annette, Antoinette begins spending all her time with her nurse, Christophine, who is a totally different kind of person. I mean, the contrast between these two women is just night and day. Annette is white, she's weak, and she's been cast aside by the changing world around her. Christophine, on the other hand, is black. She is incredibly strong, and she's deeply respected, maybe even a little feared, by the other servants. She becomes the steady, nurturing presence that Antoinette's own mother just can't be anymore. And Christophine's power in that house is totally unique. While Annette starts to suspect all the other servants, thinking they're just stealing from her now that the family is in decline, she still trusts Christophine. This gives the nurse this really special status, and it makes her a safe harbor for Antoinette in a home that's just brimming with tension. But Antoinette still desperately wants her mother. She holds on to these memories of a time when she felt safe and loved, especially this one image of watching her mother comb her beautiful long hair. That hair becomes a symbol for all the comfort and connection that she's now lost. Even with Christophine around, Antoinette's feeling of being an outcast is always there, right under the surface. But now, that private, lonely feeling is about to explode into a harsh, public one. Her isolation is about to get a brand new, very cruel name. It all starts so simply. Antoinette is just walking down the road, away from the lonely safety of Colibri. But this time, she realizes she's not alone. There's another child following her, a little black girl. And then, the girl starts to sing. But it's not a friendly, happy song. It's a chant, it's a taunt, and it's aimed directly at Antoinette. The words she hears are simple, and they cut like a knife. White cockroach. This is the very first time Antoinette feels the raw sting of racial hatred aimed right at her. It's an insult that tells her not just that she's disliked, but that she is vermin, that she doesn't belong here at all. So in the super tense world of post-emancipation Jamaica, a phrase like this is just loaded with meaning. It basically frames the white Creole population not as people who belong, but as an infestation, a foreign pest that has long overstayed its welcome. For Antoinette, it takes that vague feeling of not fitting in and makes it terrifyingly real. She is an outsider. Her reaction is just pure terror. She runs. She runs back to the only place she's ever felt safe, the garden. She hides there for hours, and when Christophine finally finds her, she's lying on the ground, literally covered in moss. It's as if she tried to physically become part of her refuge, to just merge with the wildness and disappear from the cruelty of the human world. So let's just pull all these pieces together for a second. Her mother's retreat created this huge emotional void. The wild garden became a mirror for her lonely soul. A powerful nurse stepped in to offer a completely different kind of strength. And then, a cruel name turned her private isolation into a public racial alienation. Every single step just pushed her further and further away from the world she was supposed to belong to. And that leaves us with this final, really powerful question. For Antoinette, the answer was the garden, a place of wild beauty and decay. But it makes you wonder, for any child who is made to feel like they don't belong, where can they possibly go? And what pieces of themselves do they have to give up just to survive? Jean Rhys's wide Sargasso Sea is just simmering with tension, right? Well, today we're going to break down one single explosive fight between two little girls to see what it can tell us about an entire society that's about to fall apart. So here's the big question we're tackling. How can a little game, something that happens every day, actually show you all the cracks in a whole society? Because this isn't just a squabble. Nope. It's a moment where all the unwritten rules about race and class and power in post-emancipation Jamaica just boil over. So it all kicks off with this really delicate friendship. On one side, you have Antoinette. She's a white Creole girl, which means her family was European, but she was born in the Caribbean. And her family's aristocratic status? Yeah, that's fading fast. Her friend is Tia, whose mother is friends with Antoinette's nurse. Their bond seems pretty simple, you know? But then a bet over a couple of pennies changes absolutely everything. Okay, so here's what happens. Christophine, who's Antoinette's nurse, gives her a few pennies. Tia dares Antoinette to do a somersault underwater for the money. Antoinette does it, no problem. But Tia just says, "No, didn't count," and snatches the pennies. And right there, in that one moment, what was a fun little game turns into a serious fight about what's fair and what belongs to who. Antoinette's reaction is, well, it's instant and it's ugly. She hurls this slur that you just know she's heard from the adults in her life. It's like a weapon she doesn't fully understand, but she knows it's designed to hurt. But Tia's comeback, wow, it is devastatingly precise. See, this is way more than just a snappy reply. It's a full-on social critique. She's not just insulting Antoinette, she's basically saying her family's entire history, their status, all of it, means nothing anymore. She's pointing out that they're poor and powerless now. And the final blow isn't even about the money. Tia takes Antoinette's dress and leaves her with her own dirty one. This is a huge deal. It's a symbolic act. Tia is literally stripping Antoinette of her status, making her wear the shame of her family's poverty for the whole world to see. So let's talk about the first ripple effect from this fight, Antoinette's humiliating walk home, because this private fight is about to become a very, very public show. So, picture this. Antoinette gets home, feeling awful, wearing Tia's raggedy dress, and who's there to greet her? The new Luttrells. They're rich, confident, they're the new white elite. And when they see her, they laugh. That laughter just turns Antoinette's private shame into this public declaration of how far her family has fallen. Now, this public humiliation sets off the second ripple, and it blows up the tensions right inside Antoinette's own family. It really puts a spotlight on the relationship between her mother, Annette, and her fiercely loyal nurse, Christophine. Okay, so what's so fascinating here is how these two women see the exact same thing in totally different ways. Annette looks at her daughter in rags, and all she sees is social death. She's horrified by how they look to the powerful Luttrells. But Christophine, she sees something completely different. She sees a little girl who's been neglected, and she is absolutely furious about it. These are Christophine's words to Annette, and man, they hit hard. She cuts right to the bone. For Christophine, the problem isn't the dirty dress. The problem is that Antoinette is being left to run wild, with zero care or guidance from her own mother. So instead of getting a hug or any kind of comfort, Antoinette just gets a wall of silence. Her mother is so wrapped up in her own social anxiety that she just completely cuts her daughter off. In that moment, to her mother, Antoinette isn't just a dirty kid. She's the source of the family's shame. This whole scene just sends Annette into a total panic. She makes this huge, desperate gamble. She sells her last bits of jewelry, her only safety net, to buy fabric for new dresses. Her plan? To literally dress her way back into high society, hoping to land a new husband and find some security. All right, let's zoom out. Let's look at the widest ripple of all. What do these insults, this fight over pennies and a dress, really tell us about this completely fractured world? You have to understand, the pennies and the dress, they aren't just things. In this world, they're symbols of power. Money and how you look are everything. They decide your place in the world, your safety. And for women like Annette and Antoinette, they're tied to their very survival. Tia's insult is so brilliant because it perfectly captures the social chaos of the time. Old-time white people, they used to have all the power, automatically. But now, without money, families like Antoinette's have lost that privilege. They're just adrift. They don't belong anywhere. They're a whole new class of powerless people. So this whole chain of cruelty and rejection, as you can imagine, has a deep, deep effect on Antoinette. Since she can't find any safety with people, she starts looking for it somewhere else. That very night, all that trauma comes out in this terrifying dream. She's lost in a forest, and there's a man following her who hates her. This nightmare comes back again and again in the novel, and it becomes this powerful symbol of how unsafe and persecuted she feels all the time. And this is where you see their paths just completely split. As Annette uses her fancy new dresses to go to parties and claw her way back into society, Antoinette does the exact opposite. She finds her comfort not with people, but in the overgrown, wild, and even dangerous gardens around her home. After everything that happened that day, this is her final thought. Even when the plants scratch her or the bugs bite her, she decides it's better than people. The honesty of nature, even when it's harsh, feels safer than the tricky, layered cruelty of humans. And that's just a heartbreaking thing for a kid to learn. In the end, this one childhood fight sets Antoinette on a path of isolation. And it leaves us with a question that goes way beyond the book. When the world makes it clear you don't fit in, how do you figure out who you are? Where do you even begin to find a place that feels like home?
All right, let's dive right into one of the most intense sections of Jean Rhys's wide Sargasso Sea. We're going to break down the exact moment when a family's fragile new start at their estate, Colibri, begins to completely fall apart and turn into an absolute nightmare.
I mean, think about it, can you? For the Cosway family, this question is everything. See, after slavery is abolished, they're left in this impossible position, totally isolated and broke. The Black Jamaican community doesn't trust them, and the white English society looks down on them. They are haunted by their past, and it's a ghost they just can't seem to shake.
So when you're that desperate to escape your past, what do?
Well, for Antoinette's mother, Annette, there's only one way out: a strategic marriage. She finds a lifeline in a man named Mr. Mason, a rich Englishman who promises to bring back their money and, more importantly, their social status.
And you know what? At first, it really seems like the plan is working. Mr. Mason's money starts pouring in, and he transforms their decaying estate, Colibri. But this is about so much more than a new coat of paint. This is their big attempt to buy their way back into society, to finally have a shot at a normal life.
But that newfound hope, it's incredibly fragile, because the very people they're trying to rejoin, the English elite, they bring something ugly with them, a poison that's about to infect everything. And that poison is gossip.
This is where the family learns a really tough lesson. Money can buy you a nice house, but it can't buy you respect. Imagine being a little girl, Antoinette, at your own mother's wedding, and all you hear are these nasty whispers from the guests. And what she overhears reveals a prejudice so deep that no amount of money could ever erase it.
And these whispers are a total attack on the entire family. Seriously, they go after everyone. They paint Mr. Mason as a predator, just out for the money. They call Antoinette's dead father a drunk and a cheat, and they say her own mother basically encouraged it all. But for their loyal servant, Christophine, the accusation is something much, much darker.
Now, to the English guests, this is just some exotic, juicy gossip. But you have to understand, in the Caribbean at this time, accusing someone of practicing obeah is a huge deal. It's a seriously loaded word that basically brands Christophine as dangerous, as an outsider, which only isolates the family even more. So after the wedding, the family goes back to the renovated Colibri, hoping it'll finally be their sanctuary. But that poison we talked about, it didn't stay at the party. It followed them home, and it has already started to take root. And this is where it gets really terrifying. The whispers aren't just coming from outsiders anymore. They're coming from inside the house. The new servants that Mr. Mason hired start repeating the same ugly rumors about Christophine and her supposed magic. For young Antoinette, this changes everything. The woman who has basically raised her is suddenly someone to be afraid of.
And just listen to this quote from Antoinette. It really shows you how deep this fear has burrowed into her mind. It's so pervasive that she doesn't even need anyone to say it out loud anymore. It is completely seeped into her imagination, creating this powerful, unspoken terror.
This leads to a really critical and, well, creepy moment of doubt. Antoinette thinks she sees proof of obeah in Christophine's room, a truly chilling sight. But the novel is so clever here, because it leaves you wondering, is what she saw real? Or is it just what a terrified little girl's imagination, totally corrupted by gossip, wants to see?
So while Antoinette is battling these fears inside her own head, her mother, Annette, is sensing a very different kind of threat, a very real, very physical danger that's growing just outside Colibri's walls.
Yeah, that big renovation, it wasn't just a new coat of paint. For the local community of former slaves who have next to nothing, this sudden flashy display of wealth is like a giant slap in the face. It just fuels years and years of bitterness, and suddenly, Colibri becomes a target.
And here is where the two central conflicts just collide. Annette, who actually understands the local culture and can feel the anger simmering, tries desperately to warn her husband. But Mr. Mason, he is so blinded by his English arrogance that he just laughs it off, dismissing her genuine fears with a racist and just dangerously naive stereotype.
This right here, this is the point of no return. He literally admits his own ignorance. He basically says, yeah, I don't get it. But his pride and his authority as an Englishman, as the husband, mean he absolutely refuses to listen. He is not going to be told what to do by his wife, especially not about the local people he thinks are beneath him.
So where does that leave them? Well, they're trapped, completely and utterly trapped. They're being eaten away by gossip from the inside and facing rising hatred from the outside, all because the one person with the power to do something refuses to see the danger right in front of his face.
And this is the great tragic irony of Annette's story. She married Mr. Mason for one reason, security, to protect her family. But in exchange for that security, she gave away all of her power, all of her agency. She's now financially secure, but totally powerless to save them from the disaster she knows is coming.
When you break it all down, these are the forces just tearing this family apart. It's a collision of worldviews. You've got his colonial arrogance clashing with her lived-in local knowledge. You have the power of rumors versus a terrifying reality, and you have male authority just steamrolling over female intuition. the perception of safety versus a very, very real danger.
And that's the question wide Sargasso Sea leaves us with in this moment. Mr. Mason has used his power, his arrogance, to completely silence the truth. The family is isolated, they're vulnerable, and they are sitting on a powder keg. All that's left now is to wait for the spark.
All right, tonight we are diving into one single catastrophic night at the Colibri estate. It's a story all about clear warnings that were ignored, tensions that just simmered until they boiled over, and a whole world literally set on fire. Let's get right into it. So, this is really the central question of the whole story, isn't it? It's about a family, their home, and one man whose complete refusal to see the truth leads to an absolute disaster. We're going to break down exactly how everything fell apart. You know, every disaster has a starting point, right? That moment when things just start to feel off. Well, for the family at Colibri, it didn't start with a bang. It started with a really unsettling quiet. Okay, so picture this. You're on your way home and you pass by the neighboring village, but it's completely deserted. No one's around. There are no sounds, just empty huts. This is the first real concrete sign that something is terribly wrong, and for most of the family, that feeling of unease kicks in immediately. And right here, you see the split. Mr. Mason, he's the head of the house, and he just blows it off with this casual, dismissive guess. But the rest of the family? They know better. They know this kind of silence is unnatural, and frankly, it's terrifying. This disconnect is the crucial fault line that the whole story is built on. That tension, it follows them right to the dinner table. Mr. Mason starts openly talking about replacing his local black workers right in front of them. His sister-in-law, Aunt Cora, tries to warn him like, hey, maybe don't say this right now, but he just brushes her off. He isn't just ignoring the danger. He's practically pouring gasoline on the fire with his own arrogance. So at this point, it's not just a simple disagreement anymore. It's a dangerous divide between one man's perception and a reality that is getting more and more threatening by the hour. This quote, wow, this gets right to the heart of his failure. He doesn't see the local people as adults with real problems and real anger. He sees them as children, incapable of doing anything serious. This prejudice is the blindfold he absolutely refuses to take off. So, while Mr. Mason is probably sleeping soundly in his ignorance, his stepdaughter Antoinette is wide awake, just filled with dread. She thinks she hears whispering outside in the wind, or maybe she just feels the dangers so intensely that her mind is creating them. Either way, her fear is real, and it reflects the truth that her stepfather just refuses to see. And here it is. This is the turning point. This is the moment where whispers turn into shouts, tension explodes into violence, and Mr. Mason's denial comes crashing head-on into a fiery reality. And just like that, the house is awake. Antoinette is pulled from her bed, and when she gets downstairs, she sees it. An angry mob has completely surrounded their home. The threat isn't just a feeling anymore. It's a real, physical force right on their doorstep. And what does Mr. Mason do? In this just staggering final act of denial, he steps out to talk to the crowd, still insisting that they're harmless. Can you even believe it? He is so completely, so dangerously wrong. His words are useless. His authority means nothing. The mob's response is immediate, and it is violent. And that first rock shatters any illusion of safety for good. And then, the ultimate terror. The attack isn't just coming from the outside anymore. One of the servants screams, "There's smoke." The mob has set the house on fire and the family is trapped inside. So when the person who's supposed to be in charge fails this completely, who steps up? Well, in the absolute chaos of the fire, the family's entire power structure gets turned completely upside down. While Mr. Mason just stands there, totally paralyzed, it's the women who take action. Annette, the mother, literally runs into the flames to save her son. Aunt Cora takes command, tearing her own clothes to use as bandages. In this moment of absolute crisis, they become the leaders. And him? He's just a bystander to the ruin that he caused. The family gets out of the fire, but they do not escape the consequences. The physical and emotional price of this one night, a night born from one man's denial, is absolutely devastating. And here it is, the emotional climax. All of Annette's fear, all of her ignored warnings, they just erupt into pure rage. She screams at her husband, finally confronting him with the horrific price of his arrogance. Their home is gone, her son is badly hurt, and their lives are shattered, all because he refused to listen. So, we're left with this question. Who's really to blame when a world goes up in flames? Is it the mob that lit the fire? Or is it the man whose blindness created the perfect conditions for that inferno to start? It's a powerful reminder that ignoring the truth doesn't make it go away. It just gives it time to burn everything to the ground.